Are continuing in our journey with what we're calling the bees. We're beekeeping, and we come to the book of Philippians today, and the concept is be content. So let me read it to you. The Apostle Paul, he's writing, and most of you know that he was writing from imprisonment, Roman imprisonment. In Ephesians chapter 4, verse 11, it says, I'm not saying this because I'm in need. He's writing to the Philippians. He's saying, I'm not in need, even though he was in jail. I'm not saying this because I'm in need, for I have learned, notice process there, not instantaneously, for I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances. How did you learn that, Paul? Verse 12. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. He had experienced both. Then he picks it up again. It says, I have learned the secret. The word there for secret is the idea of being initiated into kind of a secret mystical rite. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all this through him or through Christ who gives me strength. So here Paul is saying that he had learned, it was not instantaneous, but as a follower of Christ, he had learned to be content in any and every situation. This is gold, folks. This is like the secret to life, so to speak. He's fully acknowledging that his circumstances were not always good. He said he knew what it was to be in want. In other words, there were things that he desired, things that he wanted, maybe legitimate wants and needs that he didn't have. He knew what it was to be hungry, to be destitute. He talks about that in other portions of Scripture. He says he also knew what it was like to have plenty. So here's the key. It was as he went through these up and down roller coaster experiences of life, God did not protect him. He's God's number one servant, but God did not protect him from all the differing maladies of existing in a world where evil and sin are present. God rescued him, but often those rescues were only after he had really experienced some severe hardships. So he says, as I went through the feast and famine experiences of life, I kept drawing close to Christ, whether I was in the feast experience so that I didn't get full of myself and insensitive to others, or the famine experiences where I felt like, man, it was hard to put one foot in front of another. Each time I drew close to Christ. I prayed. I poured out my heart. I thought about him. I thought about his promises. I thought about his presence. And somehow each time he got me through, therefore I became more and more courageous. I learned not to fear any changing circumstance. In fact, I had learned by experience, going through the varying experiences, I have learned by experience the secret, he says, of being content in any and every situation. Now, this is an immense challenge, because there's no doubt that anyone who hears this, you could be going through one of those seasons in life where you are in want. There's some area in your life where maybe you're feeling really cheated, or maybe you're starving. You could be starving not physically for food, but you could be starving for affection or respect or justice. I mean, it could be any number of things. So you could be going through one of these destitute cycles, and you may think that learning to be content in that is near to impossible, but it only will be impossible if you don't hang on to Christ, draw strength from him, ask him again and again to give you the courage to do what is right, no matter what circumstance you're in, to do what is right, to trust God, to think about, now this is key, to think about his promises for the future. God never promises us in this life that his full love can be expressed. In a world where evil is existent, he cannot express his full love to us. He's exhibited his full love on the cross, but he can't fully express it until his will rules in the hearts of all, both men and angels. And so he tells us, Colossians 3, verse 1 and 2, set our hearts on things above, set our minds on things above, where Christ rules and reigns. We are to anticipate our inheritance, and that's where the desires of our heart will be fulfilled. So we can learn to be content, but it requires us to remember the promises that God gives us for the future, as well as to lay hold of his presence with us in the midst of the ups and downs of life at this time. I have an old story about learning to be content. The story goes like this. This young guy, about 20 years old, he takes a job at a big company, a multi-billion-dollar firm, and he's got the lousiest, crummiest job down in the mailroom. People mock him, they make fun of him, and this guy works so hard every day. He comes in, gives 100% day after day, no matter how many people pick on him. He just whistles while he works, and he's just the most pleasant person. This goes on for 15 years. Finally, one of the guys working in it pulls him aside and says, "Man, I don't get you." He says, "I've watched you now for 15 years. You do the grungiest jobs. You give 100% every day. You don't miss any time from work. You're whistling while you work. What is your deal, man?" He says, "Oh, well, my deal is this. Tomorrow I turn 35, and when I do, I inherit this company. My dad owns the company, and I will inherit all of his wealth, as well as I will be in charge of the whole company." Now, the moral to the story was this. He could whistle while he worked in the worst of circumstances because he had anticipated his inheritance day. We are asked as Christians to anticipate in the now our inheritance to come, and that helps us to be content in any and every situation. So, whistle while you work. Thank you.